Good day, students. Today, you will learn about considerations in academic and professional writings. An American writer once said, artists don't talk about art, artists talk about work. If I have anything to say to young writers, it's stop thinking of writer as a art. Think of it as work. Indeed, writing requires a lot of work. In academic and professional writing, for instance, one has to consider many things. In this unit, you will learn more about those kinds of writing. In this lesson, you will be introduced to academic writing. We will focus on its purpose, audience, and different kinds. Learning about this style of writing will help you as you make your way through academic fields. Let us start the lesson by defining what is academic writing. Academic writing is a discourse wherein one expresses specific concepts, theories, or insights in a scholarly manner. It aims to prove or disprove ideas. So, what are the common examples of academic writing for students? These are academic journal article, book report, conference paper, dissertation, essay, research paper, and thesis. Now, who are we writing for? We are writing for the people who will read a piece of our writing. These are often composed of specific audiences and usually belongs to the same group as that of the author. It includes scholars, teachers, and other subject matter experts. Academic writing may be divided into two. The first one is expository writing. This aims to inform the readers about something. It also clarifies or explains a phenomenon by presenting an in-depth discussion, and it defines what something is based on a particular context. On the other hand, we have argumentative writing. This aims to persuade the readers about the writer's stance on an issue, and it makes claims and counterclaims and presents evidence, which can be statistics, studies, and experts' opinions, among others. Now let us go through one by one the kinds of academic writing. The first one is summary, which you are familiar to perhaps. Now it is a brief, complete, and objective restatement of the central idea of a given passage in one's own words. So take note of that. It is a restatement of the central idea of a given passage in one's own words, okay? Now, below is an excerpt from Author Creates New Christmas Classic by News USA. In the excerpt, a brief summary of Alastair MacDonald's book First Christmas is given. Observe the excerpt below. Okay, in this excerpt, the author provided a summary of the book. The summary gives its reader a sneak peek into the book using just two sentences. Now, number two is paraphrase. Unlike summaries, which are concise, paraphrases go into about the same amount of detail as that of its source. Paraphrases are full restatements of a source text using an author's own words. A paraphrase has the purpose of making a text more contextualized or more suitable to its readers. It aims to make the passage more accessible. Please observe the example below. This is the main text, and this is about small businesses have happy workforces by News USA. You can pause the video so that you can read the excerpt. Okay, you can pause the video now or this slide now. This is the paraphrase version of the excerpt I have shown you from the last slide. Now, if you compare each sentence of the excerpt and the paraphrase, you will find that they communicate the same idea and are roughly the same in length. The only difference is the wording of the paraphrase from the excerpt. The third one is synthesis. A synthesis is a written discussion of a certain topic that combines information and concept from two or more sources. The purpose of a synthesis is to pinpoint or highlight the relationship of the sources used. Now, below is an excerpt from a synthesis on the American retail store giant Walmart from Marist.edu. I want you to pause the video right now and read the example below. Now, if you study the synthesis, you will find that it has four different sources. The first one is Ortega, second is Norman, third is Anderson, and the last one is John Stone. The writer of this synthesis picked specific pieces of information from the source author's works that were related to his or her own work. The last but not the least, analysis. An analysis is a thorough explanation of the elements or features of a certain text. An extensively detailed explanation greatly adds to the overall meaning and significance of a text. Here is an example analysis from the University of Queensland website. I want you to pause your video right now and read the example below. The initial sentence is an observation of the improvements brought about by specific teaching strategy. The sentence that ensues is an analysis of the observation. It pointed out how the particular observation may be limited in scope. The observation may be an overgeneralization or assumption regarding the teaching strategy. It showed the author's insight by making readers aware that the teaching strategy may only have been successful because it was used in a small-sized class. Now, before we go to making academic writing, we have points to remember. Number one is paraphrasing is used for specific information in a text. Number two, summarizing is used when you want to construct a concise and brief version of a longer text. When analyzing, it would be helpful if you divide the text into different chunks of information, then scrutinize them based on the information or concept they aim to convey to the readers. The last one is, in synthesis, usually entails analysis. After scrutinizing the different parts of the text read, come up with a new idea by combining the ideas that you came up with after analyzing the text. Since we are already done discussing Lesson 1, we can now proceed to Lesson 2, which covers general features of academic writing and some considerations. In the first lesson that we had, you were introduced to academic writing. You learned about the purpose and audience of academic writing, including its two types and four examples. In this lesson, you will learn about the features and considerations in academic writing. Learning about them will allow you to observe conventions when writing academic texts, which in turn can help you with your further studies and career. Now, how will you know if a text is academic? We will be able to answer this as we go through our discussion. The first discussion that we have here is the general features of academic. Number one is academic writing uses formal language. A formal language is typically used when creating academic writing content. When using formal language, remember the following. Number one is an objective tone is achieved by using sentences that are in the third person point of view. So in um, research, for example, we do not use the word I, me, or you. Instead, we use the word the researcher. Number two, more passive voice sentences are used throughout academic content. So what is a passive voice? It uses or it is making a sentence which the subject would receive the action. Okay? The third one is the subjects of sentences are often inanimate or abstract nouns. So what is inanimate or abstract nouns? It is something that is not a physical object, such as an idea, state, or quality. For example, thought, beauty, fear, and affection. And the last one is slang and contractions are not used. Just like, for example, in what we see in social media posts, no, the words that are dude, cool, that is an example of a slang word. And a contraction also is the word, for example, don't. Instead of writing the word don't, you write the word do not. And instead of writing the word let's, you write the word let us. Instead writing the word aren't, you write the word are not. Okay? I have here an example under academic writing uses formal language. The objective of this is to analyze the short and long-term effects of traffic on Filipino workers who commute for over 2 hours daily. The sample sentence uses an objective tone. It is in the third person point of view and in the passive voice. The sentence also uses an inanimate subject and does not use any slang or contractions. Number two of general features of academic is academic writing is precise. Academic texts usually specify the scope and limitations of their topics. Doing so makes readers aware of what will and will not be covered in the text. Moreover, the methods used in gathering data and the interpretation of data are fully explained. Also, the facts are validated to ensure that they are accurate and up to date. An example of a precise academic writing is the objective of these texts is to analyze the short and long-term effects of traffic workers who commute for over 2 hours daily. Quantitative data will be gathered using surveys, which will be administered to Filipino workers of small and large companies. Data will be interpreted using statistical analysis. In this example, precision is apparent. Take a look at the following. The scope is the short and long-term effects on Filipino workers who commute. The limitation is Filipino workers who commute for over 2 hours. This means that workers who commute for less than 2 hours will be part of the text. And the data gathering method is the surveys, and the method of interpretation is statistical analysis. The third general feature of academic writing is academic writing can either be objective or subjective depending on the type of writing. Writings in the sciences such as scientific reports and studies are generally written in the third person point of view, and they have an objective. For instance, the writer refers to himself or herself as the researcher instead of using the pronoun I. In giving an interpretation of the data or a recommendation for further studies of the topic, the writer says, the study proves that rather than I believe or I think. On the other hand, writings in the humanities and arts, like critiques and essays, are subjective. and they are written from the writer's perspective. In writing an argumentative essay, for instance, a writer proposes or refutes an argument. He or she insinuates that there is a better approach to solve a specific issue other than the current one. Then he or she suggests a different solution or premise and supports it with a factual information. Moreover, the writer may be biased toward a certain issues as he or she is influenced by several factors such as culture, experiences, and social environment. Number four is academic writing is explicit. Academic writers will have no qualms about directly stating his or her stand or main idea and will attempt to support it with a clear and complete factual information. For example, improvement of milk safety can be achieved through good management practices. Efforts of various stakeholders adapting appropriately experiences from elsewhere. In the sentence, the author states his or her main claim clearly, providing the specific steps to the solution he or she believes is the best for the given problem. One can assume that this assertion was preceded by in-depth research and studies. The fifth general feature of academic writing is academic writing may contain jargon. Jargon refer to special words or expressions that are predominantly used and understood by experts. Because the words are very specific to a context or setting, they are difficult for ordinary readers to understand. An example of general writing may contain jargon is the text below. The appropriation of colonial language is one of the essential characteristics of post-colonial literature. It seeks to identify how the post-colonial writer used the language of the colonizer to impact views. Raja Rao in J. Neil Garcia's Post-Colonialism and Filipino Poetics, Essays and Critics, explained when asked about Indian writers' choice of language that they cannot write the English, we can only write as Indians. Garcia 8. The given example is jargonistic. It includes special terms like colonial language, post-colonial literature, and post-colonial writer, which ordinary readers may not be able to understand fully. The last but not the least general features of academic writing is academic writing cites sources. Claims are supported by accurate and up-to-date evidence. This comes from the author's data gathering and other relevant, credible, and reliable sources. Okay, I want you to pause your video right now and read the example under academic writing which cites sources. Okay, in the excerpt, the author presents several statistics from various sources to prove his or her point. These sources are from Ortega, Norman, Anderson, and Johnstone. In academic writing, we have some considerations. The first one is the content determines the value of an academic piece. It should be accurate and each major point should be supported by evidence. The supporting details presented should be relevant to the topic at hand. Also, the sources of information should be credible and up to date. The second one is the basic format of academic writing is composed of an introduction, body, and conclusion. Some academic writings, though, require a more specific or detailed format. Now, the introduction provides a brief background about the topic at hand. It states the objective of the writing and its importance. For instance, the writer explains the significance of addressing a certain social issue and the possible effects if it is neglected. The second one is the body. The methods in gathering the data are discussed in the body. This is also where the results are interpreted. In the body of short texts like essays and papers, the arguments and counter-arguments are discussed. And the third one is the conclusion. The points are reiterated in the conclusion. I believe we have already discussed this in our previous discussion, but this will also serve as your review. And insights or recommendations are given to serve as groundwork for future writing, which is to be done in conclusion. The third one is the language and style of academic writing should be clear, precise, and coherent. The sentences and paragraphs are coherent and arranged in logical order. The most appropriate logical pattern, for example, is the cause and effect, comparison and contrast, problem solution, and narration is used to develop main points of the writing. And the last one is citation are important in academic writing. Now, to avoid committing or being accused of plagiarism, writers should cite sources properly. They can use any citation, just like, for example, in the bibliography note style, the American Psychological Association or APA style, and the Modern Language Association or MLA style, depending on their field or discipline. But in our university, we use the APA style, okay? We also have other reminders about academic texts. Number one is academic texts provide appropriate content. Number two, academic texts use language that is easily identifiable to the target readers. Although jargons are used, they are explained clearly. Number three, academic texts discuss what is possible rather than what is impossible regarding a certain phenomenon. Number four, academic texts avoid presenting divergent messages or meanings. And lastly, academic texts should not aim to offend people or a certain culture of people. It uses politically correct terms. Okay, that's it for our discussion on Unit 14, which covers lessons 1 and 2. Now, expect for an assignment or a quiz after our class on Tuesday, okay? Please study Unit 14. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day, everyone.